So some really awesome news for Resident Evil fans just hit, and that's the original RE Trilogy 1, 2, and 3 will be coming back to the PC and preserved. There was also the announcement of a Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster, which also seems pretty interesting too. So if any of that sounds cool to you, feel free to click the like button, and if you're new here and you'd like to stick around and help out the channel, you can leave a comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notification to stay up to date with all of my uploads. Before we get to the Resident Evil news, I just want to say first and foremost, thank you to everyone who's been sending in their condolences to me. For those of you who don't know, I made a post on my community tab earlier this week, letting people know that unfortunately my dog Nala has passed away. And adjusting to life without her has been super difficult. I'm still grieving and learning how to just be here without her, which is really hard because for some people, their pets are just pets. You feed them, you play with them, you take them out, that's it. But for other people like myself, our pets are like our family, and she was very much like my kid. I would say in my videos, I may not have given birth to her, but she was very much my kid. She was my daughter. And losing her has been really difficult, and I'm not sure it's something I'm ever really gonna get over. I think that's just gonna always be with me, unfortunately. But everyone in the comments has just been really kind, leaving their condolences, wishing me and my family the best, and even sharing some of their own stories of, losing their own pets. So as difficult as it is nice to know that we are not alone. And a lot of us have been through this, and it's just a really awful, horrible thing to experience, and it just really sucks. And I thought, to kind of maybe take my mind off of it for a little bit, maybe I should try to, just make a video and focus on something else. So apologies if this video goes up late. This will probably be old news by the time I get this made and uploaded, but it's just kind of the situation for me right now. And thank you to everyone for understanding and continuing to support the channel during this time in particular, since it's been so rough. But to get to the Resident Evil news, it was recently announced, I believe by Suzi the Sphere Hunter, I think she was one of the first people to break this information, that GOG in collaboration with Capcom will be bringing back the original Resident Evil trilogy, 1, 2, and 3 Nemesis. And these aren't just upscaled ports cheaply put together, these are the original Windows 95 versions of these games being preserved on GOG. And for those of you who don't know what GOG is, they're a gaming company that also has a PC launcher with a pretty big library of games, but their focus really are the customers. They want to make sure that their library of games are AAA titles that are classics that people will genuinely want to play and are kind of hard to find. And another thing they really focus on is game preservation, ensuring that they can take the original versions of these games and kind of do a best of both worlds situation by ensuring that the original version is still there for you to experience, but if there's any glitches or quality of life updates that they can make, they will make, which is what's happening with the Resident Evil trilogy. So these are games that are DRM free, have no weird activation, and don't require you to play with an online connection. You can just buy the game, install it, and play it how you want, which is really nice. Now, because GOG are the ones that brought this project to Capcom, unfortunately that means these will be stuck on the PC and there won't be a way to play them on console. Now, you can still play Resident Evil 1 Director's Cut on a PlayStation 5, but you have to subscribe to the PlayStation Plus program in order to do that, which kind of sucks. And finding the original versions of these games on PC is also really difficult, so GOG is just making it much easier to play these preserved games. Now, a lot of this information is coming to us from Suzi the Sphere Hunter, who I'm a huge fan of. I discovered her channel many, many years ago when I was going through a bit of a rough time, and I love her content. I think she has some of the best retrospectives on YouTube, not just in regards to Resident Evil, but Capcom as a whole. And she's a genuinely really big fan. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about this GOG project, is because she's endorsing it. And she had some pretty strict stipulations when it came to that partnership with GOG, letting them know that she's not just going to do this just to do this. She's got some stipulations, meaning it can't just be a lazy port with AI upscaling, which unfortunately some companies do. They just take their games, run them through some sort of AI filter, and sometimes, character models and backgrounds look good. Other times it looks really janky, and sometimes they just completely alter the character models themselves. I'm looking at you, Square Enix, with the Final Fantasy VIII Remaster, which completely changed Squall's character model from the original game. I don't hate it, but it's super jarring. The second stipulation she had was she had to play these for herself before she actually endorsed them. And after playing them, she pretty much called them perfect preservation ports, which is great to hear because again, she's a massive fan. So if she's giving her seal of approval to this stuff, that makes me much more comfortable in supporting GOG and what they're doing with this trilogy. And rather than just repeat Suzi verbatim, I'll leave a link in the description below to her channel. She does a really great job of breaking down these ports and even got the chance to interview the developers about the process of bringing this project together. And there's just so many great tidbits of info from that video, but I'll just mention a few here and there, like the graphical options to clean up the game without changing the look drastically. You can even have it look very similar to how it appeared on the PlayStation 1 with those kind of like jaggedy pixels, which I'm a big fan of. And the developers do state that controller-wise, it does work with modern controls right out of the box, meaning you can plug in an Xbox One controller, a Nintendo Switch Pro controller, or a PlayStation 5, and it should just play no problem. Although Suzi does mention that she had to reconfigure her controls when she played, so that might be a glitch that happens for some people, or maybe that's something that just got fixed at a later date after she played. Now, unfortunately, she didn't get a chance to play Resident Evil 3. I'm going to assume that maybe that port just wasn't ready at the time that she got to test the first two games, but I'm sure once that becomes available, she'll probably be able to test those out and give people her feedback. And that's honestly what's really best about these ports is that they are preserved. They are as close to the original versions as they could potentially be. So things like the door skip in the original Resident Evil are still there. Some of the extra modes like Extreme Battle Mode in RE2 are there. So again, these are incredibly faithful. Now you can buy them through GOG's website in a bundle for $24.99, but if you're still kind of hesitant, which, you know, understandably some people are, you can just buy Resident Evil 1 right now and play it for $10, which I think is a very fair trade-off. And all of this is just really great. You know, again, GOG approached Capcom with this project and put together a demo showcase showing them basically like, hey, this is what we want to do. These are the changes we'd want to make. This is what we want to preserve. And Capcom agreed. And it's a very close working relationship. And Capcom is a company that, for the most part, has a pretty strict seal of quality approval. Although you can argue that maybe Resident Evil 3 Remake kind of slipped through those cracks to a degree. It's not a bad game, but it didn't really feel like it had the quality and polish that an RE2 remake had. But for the most part, Capcom is pretty strict. So for them to be okay with GOG to do this, I think says a lot. And this also gives people hope that, you know, maybe other Capcom games can get the same treatment, because Capcom as a company has done a pretty good job of preserving their classic games. They have, I believe, 2 volumes of arcade classics you can get. They have their Capcom fighting game collection. They recently announced the Marvel vs. Capcom fighting game collection, which is insane, and nobody thought that would ever happen. And now the Resident Evil collection. And they just announced that Dead Rising is also getting a Deluxe Remaster, which is what they're calling it. And it looks to be the original Dead Rising, but with new graphics and new voice acting. So unfortunately, the original voice actor for Frank didn't come back for this. I'm not quite sure why, but it sounds like it's going to be an entirely new voice cast. And I'm hoping that they do make some quality of life changes to this game. It could be a little bit frustrating to play back in the day with like the time limit and the really awkward AI for the survivors you were trying to save. But if Resident Evil is coming back and being preserved, if they're doing something new with Dead Rising, maybe somewhere down the line that means that Dino Crisis could also get a very similar treatment, whether it's what's happening with Resident Evil and they take the PC version of Dino Crisis and preserve it and give it some quality of life modernization stuff, or whether they do a full-on remake like RE2 and RE3 and 4, or they kind of do what they're doing with Dead Rising and change the graphics but keep everything else kind of close to what that game is, with of course having those quality of life improvements. Either way, it's a really great time to be a Capcom fan because they're doing a phenomenal job with all of their newer games. The Resident Evil series, Street Fighter 6 is doing phenomenal, Monster Hunter is going to have a really big release really soon, so this is super awesome. With that being said, that is the video. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you guys think so far of this GOG preservation project for Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3? And is there a specific Capcom game that you hope gets the same treatment or even a remake? I am Curious Corduroy. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.